Well, good morning, streakers. Hopefully, your day is off to a great start. I've been thinking quite a bit lately about what Jamie and I talked about last week in regards to the 1% better, or the aggregate of marginal gains. And I wanted to discuss with you just a little bit further about how streaking is the best way to get 1% better. So with that, let's start streaking.
What is streaking and why should you do it?
Streaking is how you set up personal winning streaks. Look at who you want to be and what you need to do to become that person. This is streaking.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jamie.
And we are streakers. Through 30 years of marriage and 7 children, we have learned the power of consecutive consistency, or streaking.
To start streaking is simple. You just follow these 3 laws. Make it laughably simple, keep a record, and join the streaking community.
Streaking is your hidden superpower. With it, you will consistently progress and grow in whatever area of life you want.
In this podcast, Jeff and I will share all the fun, exciting, serious, solemn, wonderful parts of family, spiritual, professional, and personal life, and how streaking powers it all.
So join us in the conversation, join the movement, and start streaking today.
Where did this whole 1% better come from? You know, if you listened last week, if you haven't listened recently, 1% better, highlighted in the book Atomic Habits, written by James Clear, was based on what the Sir David with the British cycling team wanted to do in order to get the British cycling team out of the dumps and into progress, or into the winner's circle. And he did that by using this whole idea. He was an MBA student, and this whole idea of the aggregate of marginal gains, which is make small, tiny improvements. And in those small, tiny improvements, you're getting better in every single area. What he talked about is that he took everything that has to do with bicycling and broke it down into their most minimum viable parts. In software programming, we talk about minimum viable product. And the minimum viable product is that product that's going to get you, that's working, that can get you the best possible, or not the best possible, but the working product in order to get out in the market in the shortest amount of time. Okay. So as they're talking about this, as far as breaking everything down and looking at the marginal gains from all of these different areas of bicycling, this 1% better really took off. Now, as most everything does, usually what will happen is that particular thing, whatever it is, will be taken to an extreme. Therefore, you start to apply 1% better where it really is not. You're not able to apply it, or it's not meant to be applied. Now, you may say to me, well, Jeff, but don't we all want to get 1% better? Sure. We all want to get 1% better every single day. However, it's not 1% better in one area. It is looking at the totality of the entire system and saying, what can I do to get 1% better in this particular system? In bicycle racing, it was the 1% better in everything that it had to do with bicycle racing. And there are a lot of parts. Not a bicyclist, but I can envision that there are many different areas where you can get 1% better, and that there are some areas where you have taken that particular area to the maximum that it can be. In other words, it's 100%, and therefore no longer is going to get 1% better. If you now try to apply 1% better to that area, you now get diminishing returns. And that is something that each one of us have to consider, is that there's the law of diminishing returns as well. And so when you're applying 1% better, what you're looking at is the totality of the entire system. Let's move now over into our lives. In our lives, we have many different parts. There's not just one. There's many different parts. And what you're doing in your life, if you're applying 1% better, is looking at the entirety of the whole person, or everything that you are, And you're basically breaking it down into, for example, just let's go 4 basic areas: spirituality, physicality or physicalness, intellectual, emotional. Now you could add in there also social or familial relationships and so forth. What you do, though, is look in all of those areas and now say, what are the most critical, important things that I can do in those areas? And you break it down to the simplest thing that you can do. What does that mean? For example, if you are looking at, and most people, as we've talked about before, and you know, if you've been on the podcast, you know that this is what we talk about quite a bit, is you start with a physical streak. Why? Because we want to get better in the physical streak, and I want to be a person that is healthy and fit. We could talk about becoming who you want to be as far as lining your streaks up, and that is an important part, because as you look at the British cycling team, they wanted to be a top-performing cycling team. And to be a top-performing cycling team, they then broke it down into all of the different parts of bike racing and said, what are we going to do to get 1% better in every particular area? So back to life. When you're looking at life and you're saying to yourself, okay, in the areas of life, where am I? Who do I want to be? And in each one of those, what are the activities that I can do consistently, consecutively, that will allow me to progress to be that person? So back to the physicality or being healthy and fit. I want to start a streak that is to run or walk at least 1 mile every day. And that is the 1% better in that particular area. Now, does that mean that you're going to do the base floor of the streak all the time? No, not necessarily. It does mean that there is opportunity for you to do a little bit longer or a little bit faster or whatever it is, but you're not making 1% gains in one particular area all the time, because it does get to the point of the law of diminishing returns. And when you get to the point of diminishing returns, what happens is you get frustrated because you can no longer improve. There's one particular streaker that Jamie and I worked with where she had set herself up to fail from the very beginning, because she thought to herself, I've got to get better every single day. I've got to improve every single day in one area. So if you start doing that, and let's apply that to the run walk, now instead of just 1 mile, now I've got to do 2. Instead of just 2, I've got to do 3. I've got to do them faster. And it gets to the point where you burn yourself out. So what you're doing is you're looking at the total of everything that you have in life, and you're saying to yourself, what are the areas in which I want to improve, or who do I want to be? And now I'm going to set streaks in every single one of those areas. And the streak is the 1% better. And the consistency is the effort and the work that you need to put into it. When you set up that floor, when you set up that baseline, now you have something that you can work from. That's the whole idea of 1% better. You're not doing one area. So let's go to another area. For example, let's say you want to be a little bit more spiritual. Therefore, you have a streak to read at least one verse of scripture every day. If you look at it and say that's the sum total of the game, and you say, I'm going to get 1% better every day in scripture reading, you will eventually get to the place of diminishing returns. You cannot, nor is it expected, that you would just get, because what does get better mean? I'm going to ponder longer. I'm going to spend more time. I'm going to read more. I mean, where does it end? Whereas when you look at the sum total of your life and say my whole life, my physical life, spiritual life, relationship life, let's say you have connect with at least one of my children daily, or connect with a friend or a family member daily, or contact them daily. You're not continuing to add the number of people that you're contacting daily. It's the totality of the entire system that you're breaking down into its simplest parts and looking at those and doing those on a consistent, constant basis. When you do that, when you have the proper perspective in line, now your whole life gets better, and therefore the aggregate of all of the parts and pieces, you get the marginal gains and you continue to improve in your life. This is the power of streaking. It's something where you are deliberately and intentionally deciding to look at your whole person, who you are, and becoming that person you want to be. So when you hear this concept, this idea of 1% better, don't think of it in the myopic way of one area. Think of it as 1% better in my life, and that there's all parts of my life, and I'm not going to be improving every single part of that life every single day. I'm going to be looking at each part of it and getting just a little bit better. That is the key. That is where you gain and really start to succeed. Now, how did I happen on this? I was thinking this morning as I was out on my run about, I had heard, I think it was a basketball interview of a coach, and he was talking about this idea of 1% better. I thought, this is quite the concept. And I thought, I need to lean into this just a little bit more. I've been resistant to it, and I actually haven't known why. I don't know why I've been resistant to it until I realized that what's happening is the misapplication of the 1% better is going to frustrate, and really it's going to frustrate any type of self-improvement. Here's another thing that I wanted to talk to you about as well, and it regards to the 1% better, and I think it's something that is critical to discuss as well. Yesterday, I'm talking with Talon, and he and I are talking about product design for the Streaking app, and we're striving diligently to understand what problem is the Streaking app striving to solve? What is it why would I use the Streaking app in regards to my own self-improvement? Is there some problem that it's solving? And our conversation focused around the feed that is in the Streaking app. It's the social media component of the Streaking app. We were talking about how critical is that particular component to self-improvement. And should we make changes to it that would, make it so that, for all intents and purposes, we make it so that, you only get the feed from people that you follow, and you don't have a public feed like what we have right now. And as we got to talking about that, our conversation shifted a little bit to how much time have we spent on developing the page where you keep track of your streaks. After all, streaking is keep track of your streaks. Is that the primary page, in which should we spend more time there, and what would be helpful to people and individuals to be able to even get better at streaking with the Streaking page? We spent time talking about that. And then we talked about groups and how groups are part of the process, and that we're trying to figure out how groups play in and how you can be an activity-based group. As we're talking about all this, and all of a sudden hit me that it's not any single one piece or part of the Streaking app that is the most important. It's the aggregate, it's the sum total of all of it together that helps in the arena of self-improvement. You see, when you start to put all these things together, you've got the consistency and the consecutiveness, which what Streaking is doing is gamifying those things. I'm gamifying the whole idea of consistency. So what problem are we trying to solve? It's how do I get consecutive and consistent in the areas where I want to improve? How do I apply 1% better? the streaking app is built to pull many different learning motivations together so that you and I can benefit from the sum total of the formula. It's not just the social media aspect. It's not just keeping track of your streaks. It's not just the groups or communities. It's not soon to come achievements. It's not soon to come challenge streaks all on their own. It is the ecosystem of the entire thing. That's what's happening with streaking. And I wanted to bring that up because that's how we look at and consider self-improvement and what we're doing with self-improvement. And it's the sum total of the parts. It's not one particular area. And when you start to look at it in that way, what you recognize and realize is that all of these things together help us to continue forward in the areas of life where we want to improve. This sum total apart, this 1% better, plays on all the different areas that might help us. And let me just give you another for instance. We're talking about the feed and how often do we post and what posts do we get, and you can post proof. And why is that important to post proof? What is it about posting proof that people like? We reached out to one of our streakers out there who's our cold plunge streaker and asked him, what is it about posting that's important to you? And he said that it's two things. It's one, it's the public motivation, but then it's also the opportunity to be accountable to himself, to look at it and say, you know what, this is a way that I actually show that I'm doing it. So there's these motivations that are internal and also external that come together to help you to become the best version of yourself. So as we continue to build out the streaking app, the other area, one of the things that you see if you've downloaded it recently, is we have achievements and they're coming soon. The neat thing about that I love and where we've been aiming this whole idea of achievements is you get achievements based on what you do in your life, not on what someone else is saying you should do. And here's what I mean by that. When you look at the achievements that are available in any other app, those achievements are typically for using that app. The Snapchat streak is about using Snapchat. The Duolingo streak is about using Duolingo. The what's the other one I was thinking about? There's one in iBooks. There is a streak there. How many days in a row you've read? There's streaks all over, but it's all about using their app. What streaking is and what you do with the streaking app is, sure, we're going to award you for using the streaking app. However, what's even more important and significant is you get experience points for doing your own streaks, for doing what you want to do in your life. You get rewarded for deciding on what it is you want to do, who you want to become, and now you get this achievement motivation. Now, that may not motivate everyone, but again, remember, it's not just one thing. It's all of these things together. And making this ecosystem of self-improvement is what streaking is all about. So as you continue on your journey of 1% better and looking at the totality of your life and breaking it down into the simplest parts and looking at those simple parts and saying, what is each one of these areas? What is the streak that I need to have? You are saying to yourself, and you're setting yourself up for success, because every time you complete one of those streaks, you are getting 1% better. That's what it's about. Well, thank you for listening today and for letting me talk about, pontificate upon the whole idea of 1% better. I'm going to lead into that a little bit more, the ecosystem of streaking. If you want to find out more about streaking, you can do so by ordering the book at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever books are sold. You can also download it on your Kindle app or on iBooks. It's available there. Also, Audible. If you'd like to have more information from me or like to reach out to me personally, I answer all my emails. It's Jeffrey, Jeffery, at thestreakingapp.com. Also, Jamie also answers her emails, JAMI, at thestreakingapp.com. You're certainly welcome to reach out to us anytime. Follow us on the Streaking app, download the Streaking app, and start getting the sum total of the smallest gains and being 1% better in every part of your life. Until we talk again, keep streaking.